What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. Joining me from Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, Kansas, is our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, you're in Allen Fieldhouse after Carolina's 92-89 loss to number one ranked Kansas tonight. And yeah, I mean, a lot to discuss in this game. Tale of two halves in a lot of ways, which we're going to start with here in a second. But I mean, before we go into it, pretty cool spectacle to witness. I know we talked about it on the basketball show leading up to it, but did it live up to the hype in terms of the spectacle and just what it was?
Yeah, I did. In many respects, in all respects, really. We talked earlier in the week. I came here in 2019, the day after Carolina was eliminated by Auburn in Kansas City. Brett Friedlander and I drove here, and we came in here and spent about 15, 20 minutes inside, sitting up there. We never walked down to the court. And I at that time, sitting in there, that's when I realized I totally understand Roy's connection and affinity for Kansas because it's unique. There's nothing else. You know, there's Hinkle Fieldhouse, there's Cameron, there's some other places. This is different because the way they celebrate themselves. And now they did a $51 million renovation in work in the offseason, and the bowels of the hallway are unbelievable. I tweeted some photos out. You know that basketball matters here.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know they've been doing stuff for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. So they play on James Naismith Court.
I know, man. It's pretty wild when you think about all the connections just to basketball.
I'm looking at it right now, and it's just goosebumps. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of the red and blue the way it is. If it was some other school, if it was Fullerton State, I'd say it looked tacky.
Yeah.
But it fits here. Because when the people are sitting down and it's always full, you don't see the seats like that. Now, we were up there. I'll put my camera up there a little bit.
I was wondering where you guys were sitting.
Did you see the Kansas basketball thing up there?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, right in front of it is media. In fact, Andrew Carter from News Observer is sitting up there right now.
Wow.
And that's where we sat. It's actually not that high up. We sit in that corner sort of at the Dean Dome.
Yeah, it's a lot higher up there, man.
But I took a photo. I think I tweeted it out. I did send it in the group text for our staff, and to me that felt because the Coach K game, his last home game, is the one time they didn't have the media on the court because there were still COVID concerns. So they stuck us up in a nest up in the corner, which I didn't even know existed. I covered 200 some odd games at Cameron Indoor Stadium, and that day we're up in this little nest, and we saw the court at that angle. It was kind of cool to watch a game there like that. So we got the same kind of angle here, and it just felt like it felt like Cameron, but just bigger.
Yeah.
If they added 6,000 seats to Cameron, that's what it would look like. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you this, though. There were times when the atmosphere was some of us have covered a lot of Carolina road games. There were a lot of the game, it was just like another Carolina road game in that it wasn't a constant pitch. Like at Duke, when they play Duke, that pitch, you've been there, continues during the timeouts.
Never stops, yeah.
Here, the students sit during the timeout. At Duke, they ride you even harder during the timeout. Mm-hmm. So, and that's for the Carolina games, but it's like that for all games at Duke. But a Carolina at Duke game to me is the best environment. It's the greatest buzz. You feel the place shake. This was awesome tonight. Mm-hmm. But people here are asking us, the Kansas media, they're asking us what's better. And I don't want to be an ass because I shouldn't say that word, but by telling them that Duke is better. But I think when Carolina goes into Duke, the buzz is higher. It's more palpable. But it was awesome tonight. And when the game was in the last 12 minutes, when Carolina caught them or was almost catching them, it was loud. It was as loud as it gets during that stretch. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, it was a joy. It was a treat. I've been blessed to do a lot of things in my career. I've been blessed just to have this career. And I'm still doing it. A lot of really good people aren't. And to be able to have this, to be able to check a bucket list item when I didn't set out to check bucket list items, but when they come along, I check them. This was definitely one of them, and I couldn't have picked a better one. This was a phenomenal experience and game.
Yeah, man, heck of a matchup, heck of a game, and after
pardon my language.
No, it's all good. We'll let it slide here, AJ. We'll let it slide. I mean, it's compared to the first half. I know we'll talk about it a little bit later because I don't know if how active you were on Twitter during halftime, but the first half
Not at all during
chatter.
halftime.
The first half chatter on Twitter was something to
I am a little bit during the game. Every once in a while, because on timeouts, you know what I do? I type up the stats, I tweet them out, and I'm building the how it happened piece as we go along. Every once in a while, I get 15, 20 seconds. I can just kind of lean back and take a look at the at Twitter notifications. So God was all mad at us on our little show because we said, you said Carolina was going to be good, and he was going after us. My reply was, what do you think I replied?
I
replied?
I honestly don't know. What did you say, Ed?
It's November 8th.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's been my response. Let me just list through it real quick. I saw Fire Hubert along with Mac Brown. I got that tweet in my inbox. I wonder
how much that guy been drinking.
Yeah. That was fired out. I need my NIL reimbursement because all the transfers are bad. I got that a few times. I got Hubert Davis is a horrible coach. Saw that a few times. It was pretty wild, man. It was one of the hottest I've seen Twitter, especially in I guess it would be game 1.5 if we're just counting the first half. So it was an unbelievable thing to witness. But AJ, I will say, it was a pretty poor performance from Carolina in the first half, to say the least. I thought it felt like
good segue.
I appreciate that. It felt like I said to you off camera, and I was like trying to figure out the best terminology to use, and you said Carolina looked out. You described it as Carolina just looked a bit out of sorts. It felt to me that I think what I described it as is Carolina. I was like, I don't want to use the word shell shocked in the first half, but like the spectacle, the moment was a little bit too much for this team at that time, and. I get why people were fired up in the first half and at halftime with Carolina obviously being down by as much as 20, behind by 15 at the half. It was not a great first half at all from the Tar Heels, but it flipped, and we'll focus on the first half before we kind of move on to the second half. Yeah. But first half, first and foremost, I mean, Kansas, I know basketball is not a simple game, but in a lot of ways, the objective of the game is to put the ball in the basket. And Kansas, for different reasons, is doing a lot better job than North Carolina was of that in the first half. I think Kansas shot 60+% in the first half. At one point, it was 65%. Carolina was kind of like in the mid-30s all first half. And again, it wasn't really a coincidence that Carolina was behind. They were being out-rebounded in the first half as well. Bench points was a big factor tonight that carried on throughout the whole part of the game. But yeah, let's focus on the first half first because it was sneaky at times, AJ. But when you're playing the number one team in the country on the road in the second game of the year with all these kind of new guys trying to gel and new guys playing different roles, you don't want to be behind by 20. But I don't think it should be. I don't think it was that big of a surprise to me that Carolina struggled like they did in the first half.
Did you say stinky?
Yeah, it was a little stinky, man.
That's fantastic. Yes, there was a stench emanating. Yeah. From offensively that end of the floor and defensively this end of the floor. They stunk on both ends. Yeah. Here are the two things. Up front, they were completely overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And then they had no composure running their offense. They had a couple of good plays early. They went up 7-2. RG hits his first three, and the guy who covers Carolina sits next to me and says, that's a good sign for RG because I don't know what he was tonight. You have the stats right there, but he's
3 for 15 from the floor. I think 1 of 8 from 3.
So he's 10 for 34. He's 10 for 34 this season, and 4 for 16 from 3.
Yeah.
So, and he hit his first 3 tonight. You think it coming in, they may need RG to have a 30-point type game. And he had one of those things in his nose during warm-ups, and the guy and I joked, said, well, RG's going for 30 tonight because he got one of the little nose things in to stop the bleed. His nose bleeds all the time, I guess. They were overwhelmed up front. It was as if, and it wasn't just Dickinson, because when he went out, they kept pushing. Mm-hmm. And their bigs kept dominating. They looked like duck pins out there. Seriously. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fouls. Jalen Withers, smart guy, played really well tonight. Did a lot of wonderful things in the second half. And I think when we talked about him during the offseason, I kept reminding people he was 4 for 20 last year from 3. The year before, he attempted 96 threes at Louisville and shot 41.2%. The guy can play.
Yeah.
And you saw a lot of that tonight. And he's got a lot of other things he brings to the floor. But he committed 2 fouls in the backcourt tonight, commits one early in the backcourt. And then Jalen Washington gets a foul where he just falls over a Kansas player, falls on top of him. They look like they were playing with 2 left feet. They look like they were playing with shoes that were way too big. They look small. I was stunned at how small Jalen Washington looked right next to Hunter.
Yeah.
Dickinson. It was stunning because Jalen's not a small guy, but Dickinson is otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
And Dickinson had a good touch. He was playing well, but he had a couple tough fouls called on him. I think you could say they were questionable, and it got into his head some. And he does that. He leads the nation as the all-time complainer. He's a leading complainer in college basketball when he gets a foul, and it gets into his head some. It's been his deal for 5 years in college now, and I like the fact that the Tar Heels were attacking him in the first half and attacking their bigs. They just weren't doing a very good job of it. In fact, one of the points of emphasis from Hubert's press conference on Wednesday was two things he was taking from the Elon game. One was converting at the rim, because they were 9 for 21 on layups and 4 for 7 on dunks against Elon. Like, you got to convert against these guys.
Yeah.
And they weren't converting all. They were 3 for their first 9 on layups. They just weren't converting. They would get in there, and other than Seth Trimble, because of his hang time, and he did draw a foul on Dickinson with that amazing hang time, they were getting in there, and it's like they left their feet and didn't know what to do with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So it was ugly. It was ugly in every way, shape, and form offensively. The movement was bad. There was a nice spurt by Ian Jackson in there. In fact, I think Carolina fans should be very encouraged by how Ian and Drake Powell weren't overcome by the moment in the stage. They handled it well. Drake did some nice things for him. A couple shots didn't go in. Will go in down the road. But Ian played like he belonged. First time he's looked like he belonged. I'm excluding Johnson C. Smith because of the competition. Yeah. But if you look at Memphis, Elon, the D1 teams, that Memphis, Elon tonight, he looked like he belonged out there. Play with confidence. And there were a couple times I thought he was going to jack it, and he didn't, which is a good sign. So I think those are some things to build on. But when he hit a couple buckets, he hit a bucket and then fed Lubin for a layup, and it was 19-18. And I said to Bryant Balcom, who's here covering the game with it for us, I said, this is only a 1-point game because Kansas had that run. And one thing about this building is when they're on a run, it feels like it's more. Teams get beat by the ghost that's in here, by pay heed, which is right there, and beware of the fog, which is right there, and up there, beware, all who enter, beware of the fog. I mean, you can feel it sometimes. I think fog's kind of hanging out around here every once in a while and messing some stuff up for the opponents, and he was doing it to the Tar Heels. And then on this end of the floor, Kansas was running dummy offense, basically.
Yeah.
The shots they were getting were, if you were to look on a board at how they want a possession to flow and where they want to get the shots from, and if Bill Self were to say, here are the only 5 shots I want to take, they're just getting those 5 shots. And Carolina was terrible dealing with some screens. Kate Tyson came out, played 1 minute, came out because he slowly went under a screen, allowed a 3-pointer to be made. I'm not picking on him, but that was indicative of what they did in the first half. They had no answer for Hunter Dickinson. They didn't body him well. They bodied him better in the second half. He was getting stuff right at the rim in the first half. He was pushed out a little further in the second half, which is partly why they made the run. So they stunk defensively in the first half. They stunk offensively. There's no offense to the bigs unless they roll. None. And not even an attempt. They became easy to guard for stretches. And the guy that needs to shoot the ball well in games like this did not shoot the well. He didn't shoot the ball well in either half, but had he been able to hit some buckets there in the first half, you keep runs from going. He didn't do it, so it was a big fat F- by halftime.
Yeah, man, it definitely was, and things kind of flipped on their head in the second half as we saw just a lot better performance from North Carolina all the way. Let me run through some stats real quick because I haven't done that yet, but Seth Trimble leading the way tonight with 19 points. RJ Davis, who we've talked about, going to continue to talk about him here, 16 points, 3 for 15 from the floor, just 1 for 7 from 3, so not a great shooting night for him, despite finishing with 16 points. Elliot Cadeau, 12.7 assists. Jalen Withers, 11 and 9. Couple big threes in the second half. Had a couple moments too where you're like that turnover when that pass to Seth Trimble late didn't end up resulting in points on the other end of the court, but still had a couple moments in there as well. But a really good game from him, I thought.
That was a communication mistake.
Yeah.
He kind of got on Seth, and Seth got back on him. Yeah. And the reality is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but Hubert will point this out in film. In that situation, if you throw the ball essentially for Seth to catch almost going out of bounds, a lot of bad things could happen there. Only one good thing happened is he catches it and has to turn. He got a defender there. So Seth, I think, was about to cut and get the ball in position to make something happen. So that'll be the film for the graduate who made that mistake. But it was in the stretch where he was playing really, really well. So it was a forgivable mistake at that moment.
Absolutely.
For now, a one-time mulligan on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's basketball 101. That sideline becomes an extra defender pretty much in that situation. So, yeah, you can understand maybe Seth Tribble's frustrations in that instance. Then on Lubin, 10 points. And like you mentioned, freshman Ian Jackson thought he did some nice things tonight, finished with 10 points. So 6 Carolina players in double figures for the Tar Heels. Again, flipped in the second half. We have to discuss that kind of as its own thing here, I think, because we just saw a much more complete and better performance from North Carolina. It started with Carolina just hitting some shots early on. Kansas came out a little bit flat, and I wanted to ask you about this. It felt to me and looked to me on TV that the crowd was even a bit flat to start the second half. I don't know if people weren't back in their seats. I don't know what the deal was. It was a different atmosphere to start the second half from minute one, not just when Carolina started playing better. It just didn't seem as loud.
In order to get down to the press room, I had to go through a lot of crowd on the concourse and then walk down. It's not ideal, but nobody cares about that. So I'm going through a bunch of Kansas fans, and I heard 2 different groups of people. So a guy in 2 different groups saying, I thought they were supposed to be good.
And they jinxed it, so it was their fault, probably, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah, well, if I want to put on my Twitter hat and pound about 9 beers and put out a tweet, I would say that's why they lost, or that's why the comeback happened. Because I think that's the fuel for a lot of the Twitter animosity at times. I thought that was interesting, but here's also what I thought about. And I talked to a couple of writers at halftime, and I said, by the way, the national champ, first of all, James Brown's bucket at the end of the half was huge.
Big bucket, yeah.
I mean, they had so much foul trouble. I should have mentioned that. They had so much foul trouble in the first half that they even got to Ty Claw, and he picked up 3, and Hubert had to put in James Brown. That was not on the plan today. And he was overwhelmed, but he battled. And this is interesting because James Brown trailed on the break and converted. They had to look at the tape for a minute, and they gave him the bucket. Cut it to 15. Jalen Withers said at halftime, James Brown went in the locker room. He was the loudest guy.
Oh, wow.
Like he got them going, which is wild. And that bucket, I mean, that's just a little moment there for him that will help him. But I did tell a few people, I said, 2.5 years ago in New Orleans, it was a 15-point game at the half the other way. And they lost. And so I asked RJ after the game, I said, by chance, I said, it was 15 in New Orleans. Did you happen to think that, hey, it's 15 here? He said, yes. It crossed his mind. Wow. And it was part of my take is, my read on what the guys told us is that it's like a mega discourse. Everyone had something to say. And, hey, man, we led by 50 in the championship game. They beat us. So, and I also, a couple of us talked about Tennessee and Carolina last year. The first half reminded me of that game where Kansas was Carolina. And someone said, yeah, but there's no 6'9" first-round draft pick.
Yeah,
go for 30 in a matter of minutes right now on the team. But they did it collectively. They came out and they scored a couple buckets. They ran good offense, got good shots. Kansas had a couple of misses. And next thing you know, this thing is 12 and it's 10. And I tweeted out it's under 10 now. And I don't think Kansas fully grasped the idea that Carolina was there to play for 20 minutes. It took a few more buckets, and then they got tight. And they were missing shots they were hitting in the first half. Carolina did a nice job pushing Dickinson out a little bit more. So the difference is a guy like him, if he's a catch and turn, pound on the floor, dribble on the floor, catch and turn from 3 feet, and now he's having to do it from 5 and 6, the ball rattles in the rim a little bit more. You're more likely to get the roll the way he shoots from 3 feet. Had a couple misses there. And then they had a couple threes rim out, and the Tar Heels are running, and they continued to attack. You had 3 guards that had combined did not have great shooting nights, but they continued to attack. They got the free throw line. A Kansas writer in our network, I talked to him after the game. He said nobody comes in here and shoots that many free throws against Kansas. Nobody does. The Tar Heels did. He says that's a damn good team. And I'm thinking, okay, we saw damn good. We saw great. The fact that you go back to the first half, they're down 51-31 with 1:09 left, Jacob. Starting at that point, Carolina scored 44 points in a span of 12 minutes and 20 seconds. In this building against the number one team. And this looks like a number one team.
Yeah.
Carolina scored 44 points in a span of 12-20.
It's impressive, man.
That is shockingly amazing. And it shows you how lethal this team can be. So there are a lot of other parts that will come along over time. There's some concerns about a guy or two, serious concerns, but there's plenty of time for that stuff to work itself out. So what you saw in the second half was a team that got after it defensively first. They got a lot of baskets because of defense. They ran out in transition. They were able, even when it wasn't a turnover or a bad shot, they still quickly got in position. They moved the ball better, more heads up. They were out of sorts in the first half, didn't have great composure. Second half, they had all that stuff. Like everything they did wrong in the first half, they did well in the second half. The value of having Withers and Washington on the floor was huge. They combined for only 14 minutes in the first half because of foul trouble. And Hubert sat them thinking, okay, well, I need to sit them for the second half. And then the game started getting away. And Lubin picks up a second foul. Claude picks up 3 fouls. And Brown, I think, picked up a foul as well. And then they had those guys for the second half. Lubin eventually fouled out, and Jay Wash picked up a fourth and was on the bench for a while. But Carolina was playing this year's version of Carolina basketball, and it was breathtaking at times. And they still didn't shoot great. And they scored 89 points in here. They scored, it was 58 in the second. What was the halftime score?
53. Was it 50? Where was it? I had it pulled up.
53-38.
Yeah, 53-38. There you go.
51 points in the second half here, man.
No, man, it was
much.
impressive to watch. They were impressive to watch in the second half. I mean, I thought from a front court perspective, because again, you talked about how that was a big struggle.
I'm gonna look up the stats. I'll put my glasses on again.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Everybody needs to close their eyes or look away.
I thought second half too. I thought there was a point when Vidal and Lubin really kind of provided a spark down low for North Carolina that they hadn't really gotten. I think it felt like it got some other guys like Jay Wash and like Jalen Withers going a little bit. There was one play where Lubin kind of stepped out on Dickinson and he took him to the rack and he posted him up and he turned on him. He scored a basket. And I remember turning to my dad who I was watching with. I was like, that was an impressive play from him. That's the things we kind of saw at Vanderbilt that we haven't seen, albeit in one game or a game and a half. But that was the moment there, and I felt like he did some nice things. Unfortunate for him to get fouled out. Jalen Withers hit some big shots.
Let me jump in on Lubin real fast.
Yeah, go ahead. I thought he was good.
Because that basket you're talking about, that's what I told Bryant about the Florida film from last year. When Vanderbilt beat Florida like 69, 68 or something like that. Lubin had 25 points. And Florida was the biggest team in the country. Florida plays, 7'1", 6'11", 6'10" a lot. Maybe 7 feet, 6'6". They played big. Now they got a 7'9" guy, by the way.
That's crazy.
And Lubin did that. What he does, he gets really good position by when he moves to the basket, moves in the lane, and receives a pass, even with a bigger guy on him. Still got body advantage. And he's got a little bit of an old man game in there where he can use the pump fakes and the head fakes and other little gadgets to get a guy sort of twisted. And he got Dickinson twisted on that play. The other thing about Lubin, too, is one of the things I was told by someone who covered him at Vanderbilt, and I saw watching film, but this guy said, look, he finishes. He squares really well to the basket the way he needs to. He gets the ball off the backboard when he needs to, and he finishes. And I thought, other than getting a shot blocked early, he finished for a while in the second half. I thought that calmed down the front line as well.
It felt like it all.
I jumped in. I wanted to comment on Lubin because he's getting dogged by a lot of people, but there's a lot of efficiency in that game, in his game, and they're not going to face Hunter Dickinson the rest of the year. Now they're going to have some guys at Duke to deal with, but that's 3 months away.
Yeah, we got a lot of hoops left before that happens. But no, I mean, I thought second half was a big positive. I mean, you illustrating the amount of points Carolina scored in that kind of short span in Kansas, again, against the number one team in the country. I tweeted out after the game, kind of late in the second half. I think Carolina might have been up by a couple. Maybe it was under 4 timeout. But I tweeted out, I said, okay, regardless of what happens now down the stretch, this is a positive night for North Carolina. It felt like that to me because of the first half, and not because of the performance in the first half, but because of how Carolina shifted and changed it in the second half like that. I think a lot of people were forgetting, and I get the frustrations in the first half, but one of the things I kept reminding people is, guys, this is the first half of the second game of the season at number 1 Kansas, a place Carolina hasn't played since 1960. This is a good Kansas basketball team. We needed to see a better performance in the second half, and we saw that. And I think that is a massive positive and something to build on going into the rest of the year. Let's not forget, I think Carolina has, 2 games in the next 2 weeks, so a lot of opportunities to practice, learn a lot from this film. And, man, I think we may look back maybe in a month or two when ACC play starts and say, hey, that game against Kansas is an invaluable experience for this team, because you can just learn so much about your team, especially with all these new guys and new faces, people trying to learn different roles. You can learn so much from your team in environments like that. And Carolina should also gain a lot of confidence from that second half performance. So I think Carolina fans should forget that first half a little bit and focus on that second half performance.
Don't forget totally, because the second half gets more value when you don't forget the first half.
That's a good point. Yeah, good point.
And that's what I think about this game. They were able to they could fill an 18-wheeler with the value that they got out of this tonight, even in loss. They out-rebounded them by 4 in the second half. They out-rebounded them for the game.
Yeah, 40-39, 21-18 at half.
I saw the tweets about this is what happens when you fail in the landing a big in the portal and stuff like that. I mean, we've gone now. There's no point. People are going to believe what they want to believe. They didn't get a 7-footer in the portal, but there are circumstances that we have reported multiple times. And if you give a crap about the truth, you'll know what happened because we have reported it. I'm not going to go into it now, but that's why you need to sign up and be a member at $8.33 a month, and you'll know all this kind of stuff.
Link in the description.
You won't have to respond favorably or whatever to people on Twitter putting that crap out there. But they out-rebound them. Everyone's so concerned about, see you, man. Take care. All right, see you then. That's the guys that run the Kansas site in our network.
Got you.
So he asked me a couple questions about what's the Dean Dome like. He's going to find out next year. So
yeah, man. Hey, well.
Anyhow, they out-rebounded them by 4. They did a much better job. At one point, they were +6 on the glass in the second half, and Kansas was 12 for 35 from the floor in the second half. That doesn't happen because Kansas just goes cold.
No.
This team did so many things well. So there's a lot to learn. Now, the first half is a concern because it happened.
Yeah, of course.
You can't wipe it away and say, well, they are actually the second half team. The second half team is what Hubert aspires them to be for 2 halves at some point down the road. That's not where they are now, but there's so much value in having all those bad things happen. Because they saw a difference in what happens when you turn it around. And you don't do those things. So we're seeing with the football team, hey, you simplify it and don't freak out. You can actually get some stops. We saw with the basketball team here, you calm down, you play with some composure, you do what Hubert says, and things might be okay. So they lost, but they got the committee's not going to look at this as a loss. People who watch this game aren't going to look at it as a loss. They're going to look at this as a great college basketball game. And so I'm so glad we have this. Duke goes to Arizona coming up here pretty soon. Could lose there, and some of their fans will freak out, but it's a great, valuable experience. A lot of teams are playing patsies every night this time of year and loading up. I would rather have this game 1,000 times over, know you're going in and losing, if I'm a Carolina fan, to get this experience. And by the way, they've already played at Memphis too and treated it like a real game. So this club's getting some grizzled stuff going on already. And they responded tonight. And they responded at Memphis without RJ, and they responded tonight. They're showing us that some of the concerns people had about, where is the Harrison and Cormac fire going to come from? Where is that never back down going to come from? Well, they had some rough times last year too with those guys. And what we saw a response that tells me that they've got some of those guys. Withers has that in him. Seth Trimble's got it in him big time. We're seeing everything pour out of his basketball veins right now. And Carolina fans should be very pleased. Yeah, you got blown out at Allen Fieldhouse. They were blown out. And then they're ahead by 4 with 3.5 minutes left.
It's a shift, man. It really was.
There's only a couple teams in America that could have done this tonight, and they're one of them.
Yeah, again, I think that's what this means. I think that's what this means, AJ. I really do. I think that's kind of the bow we wanted to put on it. Is again, I understand the frustrations in the first half. I get why people were annoyed and concerned and all this. And we're going to do a separate video after this where we talk about a couple kind of positives and a couple concerns going into again I guess the American game next, which is about a week away. So get plenty of time to prepare for that. But again, I think people should be feeling good about this performance. I remember telling my dad too. We were after the game, and I said this is one of those games because it's so early in the season, because of how Carolina played in the second half, because of how close of a loss it is. This is one of those games in a couple months you're not going to forget it happened, but it's just like whatever.
It'll be a mark. It'll be a mark of the line of demarcation. Is that what they call it? I'm tired. People are going to look at this and sort of judge moving forward. Well, is it first half Kansas or is it second half Kansas? That's going to be the barometer moving forward. And Hubert's mission and their mission is to eliminate first half Kansas and maybe not always be second half Kansas, because it's pretty hard to do that. But if you can be, if there's a barometer, if there's like a gauge, like a gas gauge, and you got full over here, which is second half Kansas, and empty over here, which is first half Kansas, you want to be about here. Because that's realistic. This isn't realistic. This is realistic. You got 3/4 of a tank. That's realistic. And they saw firsthand, they experienced firsthand what it takes to be in that neighborhood. So there's a lot to gain from this.
Yeah, in game 2 as well, in the early process, though, the P word out of this team. And AJ, we talked about it, growing pains. There's going to be growing pains in this team. There's a process that comes with this team because, I mean, just look at the roster. I mean, it shouldn't be.
We're going to hit on that 2-2 video we do that we're going to record here in a minute. We're going to hit on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Two of the things that are weaknesses are processes, big time.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll have to see how they play out. Stay tuned for that. This will obviously come out after 3 Things comes out, as this will be coming out later this evening, the night of the game. I guess in where I'm at, AJ's, I guess you're an hour behind. Where I'm at, it'll be already Saturday before this comes out. But
I'm as proof.
I'm about to say,
I'm living on Eastern time out here.
I was about to say, yeah.
I didn't want to. My head would spin.
Yeah, it's too much, man. Just too much. Subtract an hour, you'll be fine. But yeah, man, we can go ahead and get out of here. It's again, we could sit here discussing this game forever. We'll talk a little bit more about not only this game, but what we learned so far through a couple games, and things that still need to be improved on the next video after this. But appreciate you guys watching as always. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones from Allen Fieldhouse. Nice little backdrop right there. I like the blue and red, AJ. I really do. I think I like the color scheme Kansas has. I do. You might not like the look of it, but it looks.
No, I don't mind the color scheme so much. It's
just too much going on for you in there.
Yeah, it's fine. It's bright. I'm here. I like the wooden ones. You see, they have them up. Let me do this here.
The coolest one thing, I don't know if you saw these.
Above
the very top.
Above there are wooden ones that are like old style. And before the game, when I first got in here, I came out here and I went up and sat first row next to the railing. That would be the seat. It was an incredible spot to watch.
Did you see I saw a picture someone posted of, there's like bleachers at the very top seats back there.
Yes.
It's like these 2 little bleachers at the very top right in front of the window seats. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah. I'm taking a picture, sending it to you.
I think it was Rob Baxley who tweeted it out, a Fayetteville Observer.
It was probably Rob was all over it today, man.
But that was cool. It was like these. It's just like these benches.
Let me try to show it on here if it's possible. Can you see it at all?
Yeah, you can kind of. That's the gist of it. Yeah, you can kind of see what we're talking about.
It's like the kind of benches we had when I played high school football.
Yeah, it gave me old school.
It's like a high school soccer stadium or football team has a bench. That's
That's what it looked like. It was cool. I was like, I like that little touch, man. It's just old school basketball in Allen Fieldhouse for sure.
Yeah, there's no chair backs except the wooden ones.
Mm-hmm.
This is if it's a long game, you get kind of numb. You know what I mean? Numb derriere kind of seats.
Yeah, I believe it. It not known for its.
And our seats up there, we were just sitting on the actual bench, like the regular bench seats, and the table was kind of. I had to lean forward to write. It was kind of awkward. It wasn't super comfortable, but I don't think people come here for comfort. You come here to see basketball.
Yeah, you come here to watch basketball.
I don't think they sell alcohol because I didn't see any alcohol. I didn't smell it.
Really?
And we were up near a bunch of students, and I didn't see any alcohol here.
If you didn't see any alcohol with students, they must just not sell it then, because that just seems like
Students
something
were here.
that
It
would
was
not happen.
packed. The students were here early. It was packed. They were jawing at some of the Carolina players. But then once Carolina got into its formal warm-ups, the students were pretty cool about it. They sat down.
Yeah.
I mean, every one of them had Kansas stuff on and a lot of jerseys. They make a lot of money on.
I bet
I
they
saw
did.
Rafe LaFrance jerseys.
Throwback right there.
I saw a Harold Jameson jersey. He was on the '91 team that Hubert played in the Final Four.
Very interesting. Yeah,
They got Roy's. They got the jerseys. They got Roy's boys up there. So you got. There's a period where there weren't a lot of honored jerseys. Danny Manning in '88. The next one is 9 years later. Jacques Vaughn. Everybody remembers Jacques Vaughn, one of the great point guards. Rafe LaFrance, Paul Pierce, Drew Gooden, Nick Collison, and Kirk Heinrich. And
quite
Wayne
the list
Simeon,
right there.
And Wayne Simeon.
Yeah.
And then there was a break, and then there was Chalmers.
Well,
I
Paul
covered that.
Pierce, Joel
When
Embiid.
Chalmers beat Memphis national title game, I covered that game. Anyway, so I don't know what this
goes on forever, man. Place is a museum.
But most Carolina fans appreciate college basketball and appreciate the history. And I've been fortunate enough. I've been inside all fabled 6 buildings. I've been in Pauley Pavilion, but I haven't seen a game. So that's the only one left that I haven't seen a game. So I've seen a game inside Indiana, inside Kentucky, Duke, Carolina, and now here. What's left for me is Pauley, and I hope to, unless I guess maybe I could cover the Big Ten, I can go to a game there. But they're in the Big Ten now.
Yeah, one day, man. One day. I think you
actually. The time I went into Pauley, I walked in. My mother, her high school she went to, private high school she went to, was right for 2 years, right across the street from UCLA's campus. And way back in the early '90s, we were out there, and she goes, "Oh, there's Pauley Pavilion. You know where that Wooden Guys teams played." And
that Wooden guy.
Bless her heart. Rest in peace, Mom. And she said, I said, "Well, can you stop? I'm going to go check it out." And my fiance at the time was with us too, and she wised up and didn't become my wife. And I went and pulled on a door. I'm a guy who pulls on doors, and it opened. And I walked right in, and the Lakers were practicing in there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet right there. So,
In about 3 or 4 minutes, I got scared and left.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would have got out of there too. I would have been nervous as hell. I might have got tackled in there if you'd have stayed too long. Put it that way.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty.
But I looked around. I said, "Okay, this is Pauley. Not anything to brag about."
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, not compared to places like Allen Fieldhouse, Smith Center, just the look of it, man. It has that old school, Cameron. It's just got that old school basketball vibe to it, man. Especially a place like Allen. Yeah, it just looks like a fantastic place to watch a game.
I can tell you one thing: unless this place is destroyed by a storm, it will be. I bet you they have stuff like everything numbered, so they would be able to rebuild it exactly as it is. But when your great grandchildren are watching college basketball, Kansas will still be playing here.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. No need to tear it down, man. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That place is a museum in itself, man. That place should be allowed.
The museum is connected to it.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It seemed like a great place to watch a game, and good performance from the Tar Heels in the second half. Not so much in the first half. We'll talk about a little bit more about that now.
Longest 3 things ever.
Yeah, we could have gone even longer, but we'll do a little separate video on some other things, so you guys stay tuned for that. It'll be out by the time this, well, maybe not. No, it won't be. It'll be out after this, excuse me. This will be coming out not too long after.
We'll put it out probably Sunday morning.
Yeah, we'll put it out Sunday for you guys to digest a little bit. Obviously, no football this week.
By the way, see this? Kansas has reminded me that I have a parking pass for today's game. It's almost midnight.
That was nice of them, right? That was nice of them. Didn't want you to forget. Didn't want you to forget, man. Well, we'll go ahead and get out of here. You got to catch a flight in about 9.5 hours at this point. So
my flight's at 8:30. So
you got time.
Yeah, I got time. I got time to get all my stuff done. My goal is 3 hours sleep, and then I can get home and watch college football.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Nice little relaxing Saturday, hopefully. So we'll see if AJ can get out of here so we can go do that. We got another video to do, too, so we'll go ahead and run. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Appreciate y'all watching another edition of our Three Things Post-Game podcast. Make sure you go ahead and like the video if you're excited and happy about Carolina's second half performance. We'll forget about the first half in terms of we won't get many likes if I said anything about that. So if you like the second half performance, go ahead and like the video below. Make sure you hit share, subscribe, hit the notification bell too, so you know every single time we upload, and tell your friends about us as well. See y'all next time, guys. Thanks.